What if I told you that millions of people have fled their country? But it's not Syria, it's not Ukraine, it's a country most people barely talk about. A silent disaster so big that it's changing the course of an entire continent. The refugee crisis you've never heard of. Unlike war-torn Syria or bombed-out Ukraine, this crisis hasn't made the headlines. Yet, it's one of the largest refugee exoduses in modern history. Millions have fled, but why isn't anyone talking about it? Why is this crisis invisible? It wasn't always like this. Venezuela was once one of the richest countries in Latin America. It had vast oil reserves, beautiful beaches, and a growing middle class. But over the past decade, things began to fall apart. By 2017, the crisis had already begun to deepen. Inflation skyrocketed to the point where bread cost more than a month's wages. A loaf of bread was no longer something to be taken for granted. It was a luxury. People could no longer afford basic necessities. Hospitals were running out of medicine, food was scarce, and power outages became a daily occurrence. As the country became increasingly unstable, those who could leave, did. They fled. Some went to nearby countries, while others sought refuge far beyond the continent. Imagine living in a country where you don't know if tomorrow's meal will be there, where your children have no future in their own homeland. For millions of Venezuelans, this became a harsh reality. They fled on foot. They crossed rivers, climbed mountains, walked through the jungle, braving anything to escape the collapse of their nation. Some crossed borders and entered Colombia, Brazil, Peru, Chile, or even Panama. Others, more daring, traveled to the United States through dangerous routes just to have a chance at a new life. By 2025, over 7.74 million Venezuelans have left their homes. That's more than the combined number of refugees from Syria, Afghanistan, and even Ukraine. It's one of the largest mass migrations of our time. Most have fled to Colombia and Brazil, but countries as far away as Chile and Argentina are seeing waves of Venezuelans arriving, hoping for a better life. Every day, new stories unfold. Some families walk for weeks, others gather in refugee camps hoping for help, but many are still stuck waiting for a future that seems uncertain. So why isn't the world paying more attention to this? Why is Venezuela's crisis hidden from the international spotlight? Perhaps because it didn't look like a war. There were no explosions, no bombs dropping, but the effects were just as deadly. In fact, the long-term impacts may be felt for generations. Many countries simply didn't know how to respond, others were too busy dealing with their own crises, and some nations simply turned a blind eye. Venezuela's crisis is not just a domestic issue, it has rippling effects across South America and beyond. Entire economies are now dealing with the strain of millions of refugees arriving in a short period. Colombia has been one of the hardest hit. The country's resources, already stretched thin, are now being put to the test as they struggle to accommodate millions of Venezuelan refugees. Even countries like Chile and Argentina, who initially offered a safe haven, are now facing social and economic pressure as the number of refugees grows. Behind these statistics are individual stories, parents making heart-wrenching decisions, children separated from their families, young adults forced to leave everything behind. These aren't just numbers, these are lives. People who once had homes, jobs, dreams, but were forced to flee for survival. For many, the struggle continues. The journey isn't over just because they crossed a border, it's only just beginning. Venezuela's refugee crisis may not be on the front page, but it's real, it's massive, and it's time the world pays attention. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more untold stories like this one.